Money does not just change what you can buy. It changes how you think, how you sleep, what you worry about, who has power over you, and who doesn't. Most people experience one or two levels of savings in their lifetime. They never see the full picture, what actually changes at each threshold, from zero all the way to $3 million. This video maps the entire journey. Not just the numbers, the life. What is different at $10,000 versus $100,000 versus $500,000 versus $3,000. The shifts most people never see coming, and the one that surprises almost everyone at the top. At zero, every decision is about survival. With no savings, every unexpected expense is a crisis. The car repair, the medical bill, the month where two bills land on the same week. These are not inconveniences. They are emergencies that require borrowing, negotiating, or going without. The most damaging thing about zero savings is not the money. It is the mental bandwidth it consumes. Research on financial scarcity shows that people with no financial buffer spend a disproportionate amount of cognitive energy on money. Not because they are irresponsible, but because the math genuinely requires constant attention. There is no margin for error. At $1,000, the first real shift. $1,000 sounds modest, but it is the amount that converts the most common emergencies from crises into problems. A $900 car repair no longer requires a payday loan. A $700 medical bill no longer means choosing between that and rent. The psychological shift at $1,000 is disproportionate to the amount. It is not wealth. It is the first experience of having options when something goes wrong. For many people, it is the first time money has ever felt like a tool rather than a constraint. At $10,000, you start making different decisions. With $10,000 in savings, you can handle almost any single emergency without going into debt. You can take a job risk, accept a lower salary for better long-term prospects, leave a toxic workplace without immediate panic, negotiate from a slightly stronger position. The people who tell you to just quit or just negotiate harder almost always have $10,000 or more in savings. The advice is not wrong. It is calibrated to a financial position most people giving it have, and most people receiving it do not. At $50,000, your relationship with work changes. $50,000 is roughly 6 to 12 months of living expenses for most American households. At this level, losing your job shifts from catastrophe to setback. You have time, real time, to find the right next step rather than the fastest one. The shift at $50,000 is not financial independence. It is the beginning of employment independence. You can afford to be selective. You can afford to wait. You can afford to say no to the wrong opportunity without immediately saying yes to the next one out of desperation. Subscribe. The shifts above $100,000 are the ones that change everything, and the one at $1,000 is the one nobody prepares you for. Not a financial advisor. Everything here is research and analysis. Your experience at each level will vary based on your location, expenses, and circumstances. Please consult a qualified financial advisor for personalized guidance. Now let's continue. At $100,000, compound interest becomes visible. Below $100,000, investment returns are real but feel abstract. At $100,000 and 7% annual return, your portfolio generates $7,000 per year, roughly $583 per month, without any additional contribution. For the first time, your money is doing meaningful work alongside you. Something else happens at $100,000 that is harder to quantify. The account balance starts to feel permanent. Before this level, a bad month could feel like it erased real progress. After it, the balance has enough weight that short-term fluctuations feel less threatening. The account starts to feel like an asset rather than a score. At $250,000, retirement becomes a date, not a concept. With $250,000 saved and consistent contributions, retirement stops being an abstract future event and becomes something you can actually calculate. You can run the projection, see the number, and identify the year. The annual return at $250,000, approximately $17,500, exceeds what most people save in a year. Your portfolio is now contributing more to itself than you are contributing to it. The snowball has mass. At $500,000, the worst financial outcomes change category: job loss, medical emergency, business failure. At $500,000, none of these disappear, but they change from potentially catastrophic to genuinely difficult. That shift in category is one of the most underrated benefits of savings, because it is not about spending power. It is about the permanent reduction of a specific fear most people carry so long they stop noticing it is there. At $500,000, you also cross a threshold where early retirement becomes mathematically possible rather than theoretically possible. The 4% rule on $500,000 generates $20,000 per year. Combined with a partner's income, Social Security, or part-time work, it is enough to restructure your working life entirely. At $1,000, the surprise. Almost everyone who crosses $1,000 says the same thing. It does not feel the way they expected. The number has lived in their head for years as a finish line. The arrival is quieter than the journey suggested. Not disappointing, quiet. The celebration, if there is one, is brief. Then ordinary life resumes, with one difference. The difference, the background noise of financial anxiety, the low-level hum that most people stop noticing because it has always been there, goes silent. Not all at once, gradually. And the silence is strange at first, because it reveals how much cognitive space the noise was occupying. At $1,000, the question permanently changes. It stops being, how do I build more? And becomes, what do I actually want my life to look like? That is a better question. Most people never get to ask it. At $3,000, the final shift, and the one that surprises people most. $3 million at 4% withdrawal rate generates $120,000 per year indefinitely. For most Americans, this is more than enough to live comfortably without any other income source. What most people expect at this level? Freedom, ease, the absence of financial stress. What most people actually experience? Those things, plus an unexpected question they were not prepared for. What now? The entire structure of working life, the goals, the milestones, the identity built around earning and accumulating, was designed to get to this point. At $3,000, the structure dissolves. What replaces it is not automatically obvious. The people who handle this level well are the ones who started answering that question years earlier, before the money made it urgent. The people who struggle at $3,000 are not struggling financially. They are struggling with meaning, which turns out to be the hardest financial problem of all, and the one no amount of compound interest solves. Here is the thing about this map. Every level changes you. Not just your balance, your options, your fears, your questions, your identity. The changes do not arrive all at once. They arrive quietly, at thresholds you do not always notice in the moment. The most valuable thing about understanding the full map is not knowing what each level feels like. It is knowing what to prepare for. So when you cross a threshold, you recognize it, and you have already thought about what comes next. Tell me in the comments, which level are you at right now, and which shift surprised you most when you got there? I read every single one. Subscribe. Next week, we are covering what happens when you invest $500 per month for 25 years, mapped year by year, with the real numbers. After today's map, those numbers will land differently.